Hi guys, this is your lecture for 6.3. In this section, we're learning how to factor trinomials that have a number in front of the squared term. The first thing you always want to look for is you want to look at the coefficients and ask yourself, does anything go into all three of those numbers? And in this case, the answer is no. If nothing is common, you multiply your first coefficient times your last. And 3 times 15 gives us 45. But that's a bad 5. Okay? So then you want to ask yourself, gosh, doing all kinds of things here. Okay, what are the factors of 45? And that's why I use FOF, factors of, okay? Whose, okay, sum, because the last term is plus, we want the sum, equals 14. Well, 1 times 45, that doesn't add to 14. 2 doesn't go into 45. 3 times 15, that don't add to 14. 4 doesn't go into 45. 5 times 9, hey, that adds to 14. So I want to use 5 and 9. So you're going to rewrite this trinomial, and in place of that middle term here, you're going to say, what signs do 9 and 5 need to be to give me a positive 14? Well, in this case, they both have to be positive. I don't know where that K came from up here. So there should not be a K up here. So let's get rid of that. So that it doesn't confuse you. Probably accidentally hit it. Okay, so now we have a polynomial, but it's got 4 terms, okay? So you're going to group, looking at the first 2, what's in common. Well, when I look at those 2, I see an X in common. So I can take an X out of those 2. If I divide by X or subtract an X, here I have 3X plus 5. Look at the second 2. In those 2, I have a 3 in common because 3 goes into 9 and 15. And I'm left with 3X plus 5. Now you notice I've got a binomial common term. Both of those have 3X plus 5. So I bring it in front. And if I take that out, what do I have left? The X plus the 3. And you're done. Let's look at another one. Okay. Okay. Same idea. Anything in common. Well, when I look at 18, 33, and 30, I see that there's a negative 3 in common. So divide by negative 3, I got 6x squared minus 11x minus 10. Okay? So remember, once I factor out my common factors, 6 times 10 is 60. So I want the factors of 60, whose difference, because my last term is now a negative, equals negative 11. Or whose difference equals 11, if you want to think of it that way. I worry about my negative at the end. So 1 times 60, no. 2 times 30, that doesn't subtract to 11. 3 times 20. 4 times, hey, that'll subtract and give me 11. Now, I know that I want a negative 11. So, I don't care about my negative 3 right now. 6x squared. If I want a negative 11, you have to determine, do you want your 4 to be negative or your 15 to be negative? Well, let's think about this. If I do negative 4 plus 15, that equals a positive 11. And if I do negative 4 minus 15, that equals a negative 11. And the negative 11 is what I want. So this is going to be plus 4x and then minus 15x minus 10. Just like before, we're going to group the first two. Think about what 6 and 4 have in common. Well, they're both divisible by 2 and they both have an x. So dividing by 2, take away an x. Divide by 2, take away an x. That leaves us 3x plus 2. In the second two, 15 and 10, I have a 5 in common. And since my first term is negative, I actually want to do negative 5. Divide by negative 5 leaves 3x plus 2. Now I can see my 3x plus 2 in common. And if I take it out, I'm left with the 2x minus 5. But I've got to remember to bring my negative 3 that I factored out from the beginning into my final answer. Okay? Now this is no different than the other one. It just looks different because I have x squared here and y squared here. But when I write my middle term, I just make sure to put the x and y both on it because that's what's on it there. So nothing in common in all three terms. So 12 times 6 is 72. So I want the factors of 72, whose difference, because the last number is minus, equals 1. 1 times 72, no. 2 times 36. I'm going through all the factors. 3 times 24. 4 times 18. 5 doesn't divide into 72. 6 times 12. 7 doesn't divide into it. 8 times 9. Hey, there's my difference of 1. Now I want a positive 1 this time. So if my 8 is negative and my 9 is positive, that'll give me my positive 1. So I have 12x squared minus 8xy plus 9xy minus 6y squared. Grouping and grouping. 8 and 12 have a 4 in common, and they both have an x. Divide by 4 and x, we're left with 3x. Divide by 4 and take away an x, we're left with 2y. 6 and 9 have a 3 and a y in common. Divide by 3, take away a y. Divide by 3, take away a y. Now we can see our 3x minus 2y in common. And if we take it out, we're left with 4x plus 3y for our answer. Okay? So factoring completely is no difference, but when it says factor completely, you need to make sure what you factor doesn't factor further. So nothing in common. 7 times 8 is 56. So the factors of 56, whose sum equals 18, and we'll deal with the negative at the end. 1 times 56, no. 2 times 28, no. 3 times nothing, because it doesn't go in evenly. 4 times 14, hey, that'll give me 18. Now, excuse me, negative 4 plus 14, that don't work. Negative 4 minus 14, hey, that gives me that negative 18 that I want up here. So I have 7x squared minus 4x minus 14x plus 8. Remember to group. So the first two have an x in common, and I'm left with 7x minus 4. The second two are both even, so they have a 2 in common. But since my first term is negative, I want to pull out a negative 2. So divide by negative 2 and divide by negative 2. Now you see your common binomial factor. And then x minus 2 for your final answer. One more. And I didn't erase this from when I did it before. Oh my goodness. So let's erase this right quick. Okay, nothing in common. Okay, my pen doesn't want to write at the moment. Heaven forbid. So we're just going to stop there. Okay? And that is your lecture for 6.3.